All right, so we are officially in October, and Nostalgiaween has started. I'm not gonna lie, I've wanted to talk about this one for a while. Not even because
before we get to that,
what?
I just want to say one thing quickly. Yes, Lawrence Kasdan has directed some decent films. It's probably going to be a couple weeks before my brain's back into gear, so just giving you the heads up now.
I was gonna say, what was that from the last one?
I apparently had said that he had writers don't always make good directors, and I think in the case of Dreamcatcher, that still holds up. It was a very talky movie.
Well, but he has
way too much emphasis on the dialogue. But, he's done some other things. I don't remember if I said, but we were also talking about Jan de Bont, and my brain was still getting confused. And
well, but I think...
plus, with recent events, I'm just a little...
Yeah, I think it was used a bit. But, I mean, I think, he's directed both. He's directed some good films and some bad films.
Yeah. So I just want that out there, because, people were just, coming to my face and be like... But how could you say that when I'm just like, oh shit, did I say that? Okay.
we have nothing againit's the dude. He's written some of our favorite movies.
Two of my favorite movies on the planet. Empire Strikes Back and Raiders he wrote. So it's...
But this movie I wanted to talk about for a while, not even because I hate it at all. Honestly, I think it's very entertaining. But this was so much fun to do. Let's talk about They Float. They all float. I want to give a little history on this. So I would always see this movie advertised, It, and you see the killer clown on there and stuff like that. And all my friends, I was in maybe 5th grade or something like that, and everybody's like, oh, it's so scary. Oh, that killer clown. Oh, it's so creepy and so.
Oh yeah, when I was in school, I was like, did you see it?
Yeah, I think this was one of my first introductions to Stephen King. I see a name everywhere. It was an intimidating name, Stephen King, the master of horror. And you see his name, and then something creepy on the book cover, and then these miniseries were coming out. So I'm like, okay, well let's go. And it already takes a lot to scare me. Even as a kid, it takes a lot to scare me. I think my imagination is too crazy because I always think of things 10 times worse. And I just saw this. I was like, when does the scary stuff start? That wasn't scary. I thought it was kind of interesting as a kid, but I didn't think it was at all scary.
See, I find the stuff when they're kids, I find that part of it more scary. The stuff when they're adults, I'm kind of like...
You found it... What part did you find scary?
I did... There's...
Not dramatic, not good, just scary.
I don't... Here's the funny thing. I don't find clowns scary.
No.
But there is something about Tim Curry that even though I realize he's goofy and we had a lot of fun with it, Tim Curry is a clown. It's like...
The idea is kind of creepy.
How do I put this? It's just I'm not accusing Tim Curry of anything. But it has that feeling of the creepy old man and that John Wayne Gacy thing of come here, little kitty. It's just
the creepiest part is when he's just hi kids, you want to blah blah blah. That's always the creepiest part. I mean, to me, I think it's always the build-up. But then when you see him, he gets the sharp teeth.
Growing up in Chicago too, in the late '80s, you're hyper aware of John Wayne Gacy too, because it's just that's still at that point was still on everybody's mind. So when you see it, it just I don't know. I found that part of it, and there's also the added problem of your kids, so the whole world seems out to get you. It's you're more defenseless. You're smaller.
There's something really
and this giant ass creepy clown with the sharp teeth. I don't know. I found that now let me put it this way. I found it scary when I was younger. Now I don't. I find it scarier than the rest of it, but it's not. I don't watch. There's nothing in Stephen King's It that I watch now and I'm terrified.
There's
not even close around the
only
radar,
things that got the creep up for me, like I said, one is the come along little kid stuff. That's just always scary. I think it's hard to make that not scary. The child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's just fucking terrifying. When he comes out, he's like lollipops, all free. It's
that guy had a Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah, something about the come to me thing is so
it's
creepy.
The creeper. Yeah, that's the thing. It's the creeper element. No, but the predatory.
When I was a kid, now it's a little obvious, but when I was a kid, the one that legitimately got me, I actually jumped, is when he's looking at the picture of the brother, the dead brother, and the picture winks.
Yeah, that was
I'm
good too.
That was good.
That was good.
That was a good, that was a good jump. But everything else, I saw this movie, and I didn't quite think it was funny yet, because I was still a little kid, so I was kind of sucked into the story. It's actually, in many respects, it's not King always has good ideas. Like, this is a good idea for a story, and a lot of sort of the basic stuff
Part 1
is good.
is amazing compared to part... Like, I like part 1, and then, like, something about when they're adults, like, I just lose it. Like,
the best stuff is when they're kids.
and it translates into the movie as well.
So I saw this years later, because I'm thinking to myself, and I think my girlfriend at the time was a huge Stephen King nut, and it was one of those things where it was just like, what? Maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset. Maybe I just wasn't. Now that I'm an adult, maybe it'll be scary now. Like, it's one of those you gotta give it time. And I watched it, and not only was it not scary, it was hilarious.
Oh no, it's actually really funny.
Hilarious. How just silly and not frightening it was, and so many of these ideas and the way they do it and stuff like that. And everyone, I think there was something so much fun about doing this one because. Well, there were two things. One, when we released it originally, like years and years ago, everybody's like, "How dare you, sir!" This was like our first attack on Stephen King, I think, or one of our earliest ones. And all the Stephen King diehard fans came out and said, "No, there's all these. You just don't understand. You just don't understand." Which is the best thing you can have because that immediately means it's going to be a hit, and it still is. It's like one of our more popular videos. And
the book is better, but the book still has problems.
But on top of that, it was so much fun seeing all these people come around and say, "Oh, maybe it wasn't as scary as I thought." Like, it sort of sucked out that scariness, which in many respects I feel bad about, but in another respect it's kind of nice showing, like, there were people that really terrified clowns, that terrified Tim Curry, like they couldn't sleep, and then when they see it in this comedic light, they're like, "Oh, like this is okay. Like, this isn't actually as creepy as I thought. Like, I can sleep. I can not be afraid of clowns and stuff like that." So there is something nice about that.
Well, the book is scarier.
The book's
and visually trying to represent the book, they ran into trouble, and I think sometimes they went with more comedic. You know, so there is a lost in translation problem, but
unintentionally comedic.
Yeah, but the book still has issues. Tim Curry's best scenes. The scenes that creep me out, like, you know, that shot of him in the shower, just like this, like looking, there's something about all of that white and just that pop of color and those beady eyes, like, staring at you, just, you know, the scenes like that work for me, but then you'll have other scenes where he's just being goofy and, you know.
I think it's pretty safe to assume, I mean, I'm trying to think, has there ever been a Stephen King movie that was actually better than the book? I think the books are always better. Because his prose are amazing. He really is a good writer, and I think that's kind of a testament because he takes these ideas that are not actually, you know, great stories, but he makes them
Shawshank was really good.
I never read that. What? That's like was a novella?
That was more like a novella. Like, I mean, if you're talking about the full big books,
all right, in some respects, even the shorts. Like, even King couldn't direct.
Where the movies, Kubrick's The Shining.
Well, yeah, okay, all right. And the one that he I hear he's opened up to.
I don't hate the King's original version, the book version of The Shining, but it's more of a redemption story. I don't find that scary, whereas the Kubrick version's just like evil, and that's it. There's
otherworldly. What the fuck?
There's no redemption at the end of that. There's this holy shit, we survived. Yeah. You know.
But yeah, and as I say a million times before, I mean, it's like we actually really do like Stephen King, especially as a person. I never met him, but I think everybody feels like they've met him. It just seems like one of those really cool, fucking brilliant
goofy,
guys,
personable, slightly off, like kind of guys.
But off in the cool
that
way.
Weird,
like,
that cool weird friend you always want to have, like.
Yeah, like and he just has a kind of like this no nonsense thing about him, but not in a you're an asshole kind of way. Like, he seems legitimately
and as
cool.
I've always said, he's an amazing writer amazingly proficient. I mean, what's
how many he has? Yeah,
1,230 books, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's like you could fill the Titanic with him. So he's amazingly proficient, and on a technical level, like, his writing is just like flawless. They're page turners, you know, he speaks with the active voice. They're not poorly written. The plots just aren't my thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it comes down to. And it translates kind of into the movies as well, where I'm like, oh, here's some good ideas, but in the end, it's just like, I know a lot of times monsters and things don't scare me.
You know, when everybody was reading R.L. Stine in 5th grade, I was reading King. And it was a weird feeling because I liked them, but I also kind of I couldn't do R.L. Stine at all. Like I read like the first 2 pages, I'm like, shit. No disrespect. I just really don't get into it at all. But
so
Stephen
many '90s kids are gonna kick your ass, buddy.
But Stephen King, you know, I would read, and it kept me really engaged and entertained at that age. And I think you could argue it still does now. He's still a good writer. It's just very much that like I don't. You sort of catch on to these formulas that keep coming back, but he still writes them in. It's like Tim Burton. It's like, yeah, I know the formula, I know this stuff, but he still does it in such an interesting way, and it's just kind of the stuff I sort of leaned towards more. Maybe not
like
as much now,
Miyazaki movies do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
there will be a boy and a girl combo. There will be some environmental
nature,
message.
technical machines
there will be,
and stuff.
yeah, they
sort
all
of steampunk.
They all have that similar Miyazaki style, that look about them.
But there is something, I think to me though, because like I said, when I was a kid, it was a good introduction to kind of like, you know, scary reading and stuff like that. But as an adult, I think there is, maybe because I know he's a good writer, that when I see the stuff repeated over and over and over, I'm like, you don't need
tropes
to.
I don't like.
Yeah, you know what it feels like, in my opinion?
The funny thing is, like, it's a lot of the commentary after a while that I'm like, really, like, we're going down the same comment. I don't even
you hate Christianity. God.
I get it. You don't like crazy organized
rednecks,
religion.
alcohol.
Yeah, you know, you're hypocritical religious types. I just get sick of the same commentary because that's my problem is some of the tropes I don't mind. We make fun of him. It's like, okay, it's set in Maine. He fucking lives in Maine. That'd be like if, hey, all of our stuff's set in Chicago.
Yeah,
that's a trope. Like, you know, we make fun of it, but it's like, that's a legit reason. I don't mind the psychic kids. I'm like, okay, like, haha, this is a Stephen King trope. But it's when I see the same commentary again and again, it's like, oh my god, can we have a different theme?
Yeah.
Just a different theme.
Well,
like,
you know,
the mist drove me nuts.
Okay,
that crazy lady in there, like, I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, just kill her now.
For example, okay, again, going back to Burton, it's like, it's always going to be about the outsider. We got it. But one outsider could be Batman, another could be Ed Wood. Those are two very different people where it's like, okay, Stephen King's always going to have bullies. There is no difference between like 80 of these bullies that he throws in there, you know, or the religious nuts, you know, or sort of these jerky redneck characters. And I think that's sort of what gets to me, is that there's not enough variety in them. Even though when he writes them, I feel like they almost kind of come across that way. And I think in a sense that's sort of what the movies really do a disservice to, is because I think it kind of moves the curtain and says, hey, here's these tropes you're seeing over and over that are very well disguised in the books, but they are these tropes. But you know what I always get from King, again, I've never met the guy, I have no idea, but just from his writings and his interviews and stuff like that, he really seems like a guy who writes because not just because he wants to, but because he needs to. You know, that he needs to get this stuff out there. And I almost think his philosophy is, look, they'll publish whatever I write, I'm just gonna write. You know, and look, I'm just doing this for myself. If you guys read it, great. I'm so humble, but I'm doing this for me.
You would think that by this point, if he really just wanted to coast on his own money, he could. So he's writing because he likes to.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and that's fine. And when you write that many things, I think part of the problem is after a while, there's just going to be kind of a rinse, repeat, recycle kind of.
Yeah, well, and you can, and like you said, I think because he has written so many, I mean, nobody who writes that much they're either doing it because they really don't give a shit or they really love it. And I think his writing is too good, and hear my interviews for him not to love it. So
I think that's why a lot of the ones I like are the ones like I like most in book form too, or like, you know, your Shawshank or like Dolores Claiborne. A lot of the ones that aren't obvious.
Game. I like the ones that aren't supernatural.
Yeah, that aren't supernatural. That's the weird thing. I think like the supernatural ones, because maybe they don't scare me that much, I feel come off to me personally as the weaker ones, the ones I'm like not as interested in. But I will say this, what he does do really, really well is settings. Because whenever I think of like cool settings in a horror story, I mean the Overlook Hotel. You know, The Mist as a story I didn't like very much. I'm like, wow, you made a grocery store and the fog scary. Like, I loved the setting, I just didn't like the way the story played out. You know, there's always... I'm trying to think, what was the other one just off the... Dreamcatcher, that cabin in the woods.
A lot of people didn't care.
You know what? And another one that I thought was great. Again, the story is goofy as hell. But the setting for the Langoliers, that just
no, that's a great idea.
But that was one of the creepiest feelings I ever had was watching the Langoliers in just that abandoned airport.
What I picked up,
with nobody there, no sound. I thought that's an awesome idea.
The first thing I picked up reading a couple of the Stephen King books was that I always wanted to know what was going to happen. I couldn't die. If I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, that's because he's such a great
technical writer.
But then
he knows how to create these page
Well, and they are good setups. Like I said, Langoliers, I mean, it's just like, how could you not...
Yeah.
How could you, like, read, the first 30 pages and be like, nah, go read something else? It's like, you have to know what's going on. I mean, these are such good... And even the clown, just like, there's this clown going on, but he has kind of these supernatural... It's just like, what is going on? And then you just keep going, and it was always kind of like the...
And then, giant spider.
Yeah, it was always kind of... And I know there's like, everyone always says, there's like, no, there's a reason, there's these things, and then when you explain it, it sounds worse. And I remember, like I said...
it connects to the other series, and
the girl has to sleep with all the boys.
It's just
That's supposed to make it better? No, the way he wrote... It's always the way he wrote it, and again, that is a testament to a good writer. He can make this insanity sound... legit.
It's hard to translate to film, though.
Well,
and like some of it, and I think didn't he admit that he kind of wrote himself into a corner with it? Because wasn't connecting it to the other series like a retcon that he started to realize, oh, maybe this is one of the old ones, and the.
Well, the other thing I really give King a lot of credit for, I mean, I'm trying to think how to put this delicately. He kind of acknowledges. He's like, look, if you want really great writers, go read the really great writers. I'm flattered, but go read the really great writers. He kind of knows he's not... Look, I enjoy what I do. Yeah, I'm an entertainer. I write these thrillers.
And a great entertainer.
It's like, and I know I'm talented, but I am not... You're calling me a great writer. No, I'm not. And I'm not even saying that's a humble thing. I know I'm not compared to like these great books of literature and these great stories. So, and again, that's just something where it's like, I really give him credit for, because there is kind of this awareness, and it clearly hasn't gone to his head. I mean, nothing, I don't feel like anything has really gone to his head, apart from the drugs. Which, again, sir, considering his writing, it was kind of fun when he was on drugs.
And it showed.
Well, Maximum Overdrive, he just admitted, like, I was coked out of my mind when I directed that. And you just look at him in the trailer, and you can tell.
Was it that one or Tommyknockers? Was it both?
Tommyknockers he wrote when he was high out of his mind, and then Maximum Overdrive he directed when he was high out of his mind. Coked out of his mind, is what he said.
Yeah, because I thought he said Tommyknockers he wrote when he was coked up.
Well, a funny idea. Again, we're taking kind of a different, going a little bit of a different direction here, but I think the video's out. You know what's coming up next. Dreamcatcher is the one that we just did, and they had him on interview, and he said he really wanted the toilet. He wanted to do for the toilet what Psycho did for the shower. He's like, that hasn't been touched yet, because he says he wants to tap on these things that haven't really been tapped on yet. He says, nobody's done the toilet before. I wanted to see if I can make that scary. And again, I haven't read Dreamcatcher, but I'm sure in the book...
it was way
better.
Scarier.
Yeah, but, it's like you just... see the toilet. You say the word toilet, you start giggling.
My problem with Dreamcatcher, too... Well, we'll get to this eventually with the... real thoughts probably for that, but my one problem, I'll jump ahead of the game and say, is that great idea, but it's a smooth eel. I get it as a mouth and teeth on the inside, but I just was like, if that thing had spikes and it came out your ass, I would be sitting there going, oh! I don't know, I was just having, I'm like, they could have made it way scarier looking on the outside. And,
but we're talking about it here, so I think the big stuff. Like I said, the stuff with the kids is the best, even though there's still a lot of silly moments. And when they get to adults, it's kind of maybe because they're kids, we allow a little bit more of kind of the overacting or a bit. But
honestly, I thought the child actors were pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because it was comparison to the adult actors, but they seemed a lot better. But even scenes like, remember in the mental... I just realized,
I was like, they're children first, and then they're adults, and they're a little goofier. The story doesn't work as well. Whereas I'm like, Dreamcatcher. We just saw this recycle again.
Even Dreamcatcher, I'd argue it's even sillier when they're kids.
Maybe the writing's not particularly good.
But even like in the mental institution, I mean, the scene where it's just, I just show people, everyone's like, oh, it is so scary. I'm like, let me show you this clip from your scary film. And it would just be like...
Such a dick.
No, I know, but no, the one...
scary movie.
No, because people were like, oh, I just couldn't sleep. I was so tired. And then it's like when they see this scene, it's the scene where like I think Tim Curry turns into the dog and attacks the guy, and it just everyone forgets about that scene. They watch it and they just go, oh. And then they'll sort of look at everything. It's kind of like from there on they'll look at everything, and then of course they'll show the spider. They're like, huh.
Acting like, so over the top when she discovers her husband slit his wrists in the bathtub. It just.
Well, and on the version we had, they cut the best part because she goes like that, and then it cuts to whatever, just spelled it again. It just hear Tim Curry going. And that was so great.
But yeah, the adult stuff I thought was definitely the weakest.
Well, even like that setup of him, like, being dead and spelled out it with his blood, and the, wife or mother, whatever it was, coming in, discovering it. Just what a terrifying
great
thought.
idea.
Again, reading that's so scary when you see
Made
it. Like, it's
unscary though by her reaction.
I don't know, and just sort of the music and the chun chun, those little things. I'm like, just how much more terrifying would that be if it was just like she walks in and it's just quiet. It's just so.
But the funny
quiet.
thing is, not scary as it is now, what does make it is the thing that's not scary, and that's Tim Curry.
Yeah, no,
like
he's so much fun.
So makes that
he'd be a great clown. In real life, I'm not probably not supposed to think that, but I'm just like, I want him at my party.
I think that's what makes and the moments that are scary with Tim Curry, I think, is because of that, because it's just, you feel like, this could almost be a real clown, and then it always goes that extra step over the top and kind of wrecks it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many early scenes where he just looks like, and I've seen the new one they're doing, and I've seen some of the promotional shots. I'm like, ooh, it's scary clown makeup now, and I'm like, no, what made Tim Curry's version scary is that he just looked like an actual clown.
See, what I always kept hearing is like, well, that clown just looks silly. I'm like, he's a clown. He's supposed to. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm kind of with you.
You don't need to do anything to Tim Curry to, like, you put the clown makeup on his face. That's all you need to do. And I think that's why a lot of kids have a fear of clowns. A lot of kids do. And a lot of people have a fear of clowns, and I think that's why it's so fucking scary. I think that, like, when I see the scary clown masks and stuff at the Halloween store, I kind of laugh, because I'm just like, it would be so much more terrifying if you just dressed up like a regular clown.
Yeah, well, no, like a lot of those masks
just,
and stuff from the 50s, or even those clowns from the 50s, it's like, and they're just trying to be charming.
And that's why Tim Curry works, because it's like he's playing it like a clown. And it goes over the top, but, like, those early scenes when it's a little more subtle, I'm just, ugh.
Well, and I think there's something, too, I sort of like that now when people kind of quote Tim Curry from It, they're not... Again, I love Tim Curry in It, but I like that now when they're kind of quoting it and talking about it, they're doing it and kind of laughing about it. Like, they all float. Wah-ha, wah-ha, wah-ha. Like, now people are having fun with it, and it's not as much the... Like, if they want to be terrified, like, and have fun, oh, he's so scary and creepy, too, that's fine. But I'm talking about the people that, like... I guess I just knew a lot of people that were, like, quote-unquote traumatized by this film, and I just really, like, started going and, like, look, I mean, it's okay. I mean, you're scared by whatever you're scared by, but like, have you ever thought looking at it from this angle? And I like that just now people can quote it and have fun.
I think it's that intro scene. I think that's probably the scariest scene in the movie, at least when I saw it the first time, of him in the sewer.
That is probably the scariest scene.
And, like, it just...
Well, no, and
because you don't know what else is down there. It's dark, and that's why it's such a fucking letdown at the end.
Yeah,
like,
no, that's what's scary.
Giant, and I love stop motion animation. But this was definitely a case where I'm like, oh, that did not hold up.
No,
it's like a fucking Large Marge sequence from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like, it just was too goofy.
I feel like so much of King, honestly, again, I think like all great horror is just what you don't see.
Yeah,
we see,
gets
come on down there, we have balloons, all colors, and he's just clearly lying. But it's like, what is down there, or what does he, but you can also get in that kid's mind, like, ooh.
Well, when he pops up out of the shower, or just when you see him out there, that's when it's scary. Like, it just isn't when it's, him doing goofy things, or becomes the giant spider, or... But yeah, I think
or the mummy or the werewolf.
Yeah, I think those early seasons, and those are funny now, ironically, because it's Tim Curry just chewing scenery and having a great time. But I mean, it's not so much scary. We laugh at that now.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. anything else about it. I mean, everything else that we talk about, and we just talked about a million times with the Stephen King tropes. I think it's very entertaining. Honestly, I think it is super entertaining. I don't think it's scary. I think the stuff with the kids is dramatic, and everything else is
I think
really
the first
enjoyably silly.
I think there are scenes early on in the first half that are legitimately scary, but. I mean, not so much as an adult now, but as a kid, terrified the fuck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
But even as a kid, like, I remember seeing bits of the second half and just, all the scary stuff was in that first half, and like there are parts in there that are really scary. As a whole, though, like part 2 is such a letdown.
Yeah.
Such a letdown. I don't know what they're gonna do with the remake. Like, I'm worried that's gonna be the same thing where I'm just like, oh, so.
When I know there's this big, complicated backstory and stuff, I remember reading a little bit of that and again, you'd sort of read it, but I would sort of read it, but not read it at the same time. Like, I wouldn't process it because I'm just like, I don't care whatever the technicals are.
It connects to his larger universe.
Yeah,
which I don't know if that was intentional or if he kind of retconned that, like wrote himself into a corner and was kind of like, well, then maybe it'll connect to this, so it's not a complete waste of time.
I don't know, but I mean, it's something I never got that interested in it. But the actual basic idea, like what is going on, was good. But then when they got into the super technicals of it, it's like, no, just it's like, okay, it's like a ghost story. It's like we don't need to know how there's an afterlife and the technicals. It's like, no, just who died and why do they want to kill me? It's like that's the basics that we want to know. I don't need to know all the technicals, but I don't feel it did that too much. It was only kind of like, in the book anyway, it was only kind of near the end. In the movie, they just said, no, we're not doing that at all, to their credit. But I'm sure he can do that stuff too. I never read The Dark Towers. I hear they're phenomenal. So maybe he can do that stuff really well too. And they're making the movies now too, aren't they?
Yeah, so that will be the big experiment.
Yeah, because that is like just pure Stephen King technical world story. It's kind of like his Lord of the Rings kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, and I'm both really intrigued and kind of terrified because they are good, and I'm just like, we've seen how much of King has been destroyed in the movie making process. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes hilariously so. I mean, a lot of times they're still entertaining. Yeah. But I'm like, this is one that I don't want to see destroyed. Like, I think King put his heart, like, it's one that I think that they're really solid. And, oh, God. Yeah, I just...
fingers crossed. It sounds like there's good people attached, so we'll see what happens with that. But, a funny movie, not especially scary, and had some dramatic moments, but mostly just kind of silly. And if you like it, great. If you're still terrified by it, be terrified of it, bring it out.
It's got killer clowns in it. How can you not? Like, when people are just like, oh, it scared me, I'm like, oh, I get that. Not the second half doesn't scare me much, but the first half, I'm just like, oh, if you have a fear of clowns, that fucking movie will... yeah, that's...
I guess I sort of thought there'd be more like subtlety.
People who have a fear of clowns are also afraid of killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah, exactly. So is that really scary? Kind of depends.
I don't know. Maybe I did have a fear of clowns because when I was like 5 years old, that movie scared me. So
what, It or Killer Clowns?
Killer Clowns.
I was gonna say, I don't think it wasn't that when we were.
I just didn't want to be encased in cotton candy. All right.
So cool. That's about it. We'll see you guys later. Enjoy Nostalgia Ween. Bye. Waha! 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 Waha!
That looks so wrong.
Feels so right.
Ugh.